Muffles' life sentence is a strange mix of surrealism, psychology, and I suppose a little bit of comedy with some fascinating characters and designs. The story is strong, but in its current state, it's incomplete, which can be attributed to the fact that it is being released in an episodic format. Thankfully, however, at a fast pace, roughly around every few months or so. Until the final chapters are released, the journey of Muffles and his band of miscreants trapped inside of their own head remains unfinished. So in my opinion, it would be a better opportunity to pick the game up once it has been fully released. That is, if you don't mind indulging yourself in a weird world slowly being created. The story follows prisoners who are isolated on an island under the control of the Maddox family. Inmates are sent here for all manners of crimes like murder, theft, and more. Here they are subjected to inhumane experimentations and brutal mutilations, reshaping them into grotesque reflections of their crimes. Each prisoner ends up becoming a living display, a twisted monument of Maddox's image of a perfect system. This is a grim, oppressive prison full of violent people who have suffered horrific treatment, while also showcasing little sign of guards or control. Beneath the surface lurks a group of lesser criminals known as petties, such as petty larceny, arsony, and such things as theft, who have all formed a secret society determined to bring down the Maddox system, with the help of a singular monarch to them all known as Scarlet. Somebody who has been born on the island, an island that had been previously known to be infertile due to all the experimentations, so she is looked up to as a monarch. In this world you play as Muffles, a faceless monstrosity incapable of speech, but harboring a hidden power that only becomes more apparent as your infamy grows. Visually, it's minimalistic but effective, using a monochromatic style with customizable backdrops unlocked as you progress through the story. Enemies are unique and well designed, the UI fits, and the music feels right at home in this world full of criminals. As a story-driven narrative, these elements work together, yet the overarching gameplay feels out of place, causing the game to fall apart in certain places, which undermines everything the game does well. Alright, so the easiest way to explain the problem is this. It feels like a well-written story, weighed down by gameplay that lacks the same enthusiasm, depth, and meaning, serving little purpose beyond wasting a player's time. This sounds harsh, but that is the reality. Combat is pointless outside of progressing the story through a boss fight. It feels like the story was just crammed into something that they made secondhand. Combat revolves around playing as Muffles, interacting with the world, and killing people so you can carve off their faces, wear them, and become them. Their spirits remain inside of you, and we do not know who Muffles truly is, or why they can do what they do, or even why D is immortal. Each stolen face grants these types of abilities in the form of cards, which can be unlocked and combined with your mindscape. So the problem with this system is that while the individual elements work really well, since the deck building can be fun to experiment with, the core gameplay boils down to a wordless, repetitive combat that becomes stressful and stale in very specific sections. The forest is a prime example. You need to have a face of a certain creature, but I explored without it simply because the game allowed me to. This ended up leaving me to fight two things for hours, losing progress if I died, and gaining nothing back for all of the troubles. We're talking about no EXP, no loot, no payoff. It's just an artificial time sink that repeats the same skill rotations for no reason at all. I would have loved to see more depth, or at the very least, less combat, if combat has no integrity within the world itself. A less severe but also still notable issue is the occasional autoplay of cards in combat. If you keep pressing the button, you can trigger actions you did not intend, such as ending your turn or placing a card from your previous hand before it gets shuffled. I was able to replicate this by repeatedly spamming the interact button until it eventually happened, but it was slightly hard to replicate. It's more of an annoyance than a major problem, but it is still worth noting. On the other hand, the game-breaking freeze while entering houses with the character Kuni is far more serious. While this did seem to only happen in one house, it seems to have been caused by her model overlapping an NPC who was meant to walk out from beneath her, completely halting progress. Since gameplay is autosaved, you need to save as frequently as you possibly can. If you die, it's game over. The same if you run into other bugs. You see, the problem isn't so much that the combat and gameplay are bad, but it just doesn't blend or mesh well with the narrative aspect of the game. It's more of a story than it is a traditional RPG where you're running around to gain EXP and levels to become stronger to fight the final bosses. Imagine if Earthbound didn't have combat, it would feel out of place. That is exactly how it feels here. The main drive here is to free yourself and everyone else from the Maddox institution of maniacs and murderers. With only 3 chapters currently available, the story is still engaging in parts, but there are still issues with the pacing and progression. One standout feature, for example, was the characters and their personal stories and the fragments of their lost memories slowly returning after being erased by the doctor's mind-altering experiments. The comedy of D and the moments of pure silliness clearly shows how much fun the developers had bringing this strange world to life. However, I do have to raise concerns about the pacing once again. The game has its highs and lows. It needs a stronger incentive for you to actually want to fight, like an experience system or currency or something to upgrade your mind powers and build powerful synergies for tougher battles. Right now, the combat just feels like a roadblock in many different ways, meant to slow you and the story down, pulling you out of boat substantially. What I mean by this is that most of the boss fights feel scripted. You're not really fighting to kill them or win the battles yourself. Often, an event triggers shortly after the start of the battle that either kills the boss for you or lets them escape entirely, followed by a lengthy dialogue sequence. At its heart, Muffles' Life Sentence is a fantastic story featuring a cast of wildly weird and mutilated prisoners. But it also feels like it was squeezed into an Earthbound-style combat system, but without any rewarding RPG grind that makes you want to get stronger. It's tiring to say the least. I only managed to finish Chapter 3 because the story remained so compelling even throughout the build-up that I wanted to keep pushing forward as I slowly drifted to sleep. If you're somebody drawn to story-rich worlds filled with dark humor and even darker themes, Muffles' Life Sentence is definitely worth digging into, even if its niche appeal might not be for everyone. I still found myself wanting to come back for future episodes. Even if the gameplay does have its many flaws, here's hoping that Bossy Pino will freshen up the game with some improved pacing and more rewarding curiosity-driven elements that can get the community buzzing with more interesting theories.